Hi, my name is Dano,
And I'm Wheezy.
and thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of
FPL across the pond.
We will be discussing our Game Week 1 action, the latest transfers, and players to target for Game Week 2, along with our Game Week 2 changes. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with the table after the first game week. We'll go ahead and go over the standings for the first game week. Not much to go off of here, but in first place, we do have Brighton and Hove Albion with 3 points with that goal differential there with 3 goals over their game against Everton. In second place, we have Arsenal. Third place coming behind them is going to be Liverpool. And in fourth place, we have Manchester City, followed up by Aston Villa in fifth place, Brentford in sixth place, Man United in seventh place, Newcastle in eighth, Bournemouth in ninth, Leicester City in 10th place, Nottingham Forest in 11th, Tottenham Hotspur in 12th, Crystal Palace in 13th, West Ham in 14th, Fulham in 15th, and Southampton in 16th. And then 17th is Chelsea trailing before the relegation zone, where we have our bottom 3. And again, it's just game week 1, so let's not get overly concerned. But we do have Ipswich in 18th place. And then behind them is going to be Wolverhampton Wanderers in 19th, followed lastly by Everton in 20th place there. So the last 13 to 20 teams all had losses there. And then from teams 9 to teams 12, which ends with Tottenham, those were all draws. And then from position 1 to position 8, they were all wins, only separated by goal differentials. But that is the table starting off after the first game week here in week 1. So to begin with our game week 1 thoughts, I think that there was everything you would have expected from game week 1. We have our surprises, we had our ups, we had our downs, we had our games that we expected, and everything else in between.
Yeah, so I thought it was interesting. All 4 Champions League qualifiers got the win in game week 1 here. So it looks like the strong teams from last year are going to be strong again this year. So Arsenal, Liverpool, Man City, and Aston Villa with the wins. And what stood out to me in game week 1 was Mo Salah still got it. He's still the king of FPL. He put up the most points with 14. I did captain him. Did you captain him this week?
Mo Salah, yeah, I did captain him.
You did. So yeah, Mo Salah still got it even without Jurgen Klopp. Yeah, he's still putting up points, and he will continue to be someone that my squad will rely on as long as he's got easy fixtures here.
I thought there were a couple other standout players here that really made an impact on the teams for the first game week. In particular, some standouts for me. One I wasn't expecting that I thought I was very surprised by was Jamie Vardy getting that goal, coming back to the EPL. That was nice for him to come back and see that. So that was enjoyable. But you got some of those transfers that came in that were really good. Mizraoui for Man United. I mean, he came in and got the start and got those 8 points, I believe it was. So yeah, definitely some new faces on some teams that really made an impact. Xerxes for Man United, Onana for Everton, all coming in and just making an instant impact, which is more than you can expect from a new player coming on the team, especially with an unknown into the squad. So yeah, I mean, just some other standouts for me in particular. Saka, Havertz, Mbomo, and Wisa for me were great players that had some really good games. Couple letdowns there, one of them being my own Chelsea. Chelsea definitely didn't come through, but to be fair, I knew there was going to be a tough game regardless of being at home. The other one, we had an own goal in that Brentford game with Pinnock. That was a little bit of a letdown there for them in the back, but something that stood out for me. I was always a big fan of Pinnock and had him out on my team a lot last year. But yeah. Let's see here. Do you have any other surprise players or anything like that?
Yeah, I can't believe you mentioned Jamie Vardy without talking about the Red Bull that he slammed at halftime.
Oh,
Did you see that?
I don't think I saw that
So
actually.
yeah,
Yeah.
you have to look that up. But
Yeah.
he slammed what looked like a Red Bull walking out of the tunnel and then scored a goal like 15 minutes later. So there's also some clips of him going at it with the Tottenham fans,
Yep.
comparing his one Premier League to their zero, which is just insane. But
Yep.
yeah, he definitely came back from the dead with that Red Bull this weekend. So yeah, it was good to see him. Other game week one thoughts for me. You had mentioned Chelsea being disappointing. Cole Palmer, now that he's what is he 10 million pounds, whatever he's at
10.5, I think. Yeah.
10.5 million pounds. It's you expect more than 2 points every week when you're shelling out that kind of money. We're so used to him being a 5 million pound player where it really didn't matter when if he put up 2 points. But yeah, it was disappointing, but it was to be expected, right? With Man City in game week one, that it was the odds weren't very good for him to put up a lot of points, but he's
Yeah.
got Wolves, Crystal Palace, and Bournemouth coming up. So I would imagine he's gonna put up a lot more than 2 points in those games. So I'm looking forward to Cole Palmer bouncing back.
And yeah, I don't know if you've seen, but a lot of people are dropping them after week one, which a lot of people tend to do. They
That's just poor planning, right?
tend to panic after the players don't do well in week one. Don't be alarmed. Yeah, very poor planning, very poor planning. And even if they don't do well in week one, it's the first game week, don't panic. It's going to be fine. Stick with who you think is going to continue to play, who's going to continue, to, get those points on the board. And yeah, just don't panic because too many managers tend to do that. And then that puts them in a bad situation going into game week 3, 4, 5, whatever. So yeah, just be a little
Yeah,
smart.
if you're gonna start Cole Palmer, in week one, knowing that he's going against Man City, I can't believe you're gonna drop him with the run of games coming up after that. And so to me,
Yeah.
that's just some amateurs out there. If they're already dropping Cole Palmer. But yeah, I get it getting that itch to want to change up your squad, get that 10.5 million pounds to reinvest into your squad. So it
Yeah.
makes sense why he's one of the most drop players of the week. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's one thing that I did quite a bit when I first started is I would be very willing to take those -4 hits all the time, and that just adds up, right? So like,
Yeah.
Cole Palmer gets 2 points in a week, or whoever you're transferring in a week, you're giving up four, so you're already at -2, plus whoever you swapped out probably would have got 2 points anyways. So really, you have to be careful with taking those hits. So yeah, the other thing I want to talk about game week one was Man City. Are they just too good? Are they gonna rotate all season, or is Pep gonna get a starting 11?
Man,
Uh,
it is scary when you consider that they played that well, in their first game. And, obviously they have a second starting line there. So that's even more worrisome. But yeah, I mean, they're the champions and they've been the champions for a reason and they're continue to stay in form. And, outside of a couple players here and there that we might talk about a little bit later here, but overall, like they're just dominating. You know what I mean? You just can't do much about that. Another surprise for me, actually, now that we're talking about game week, talking about the game week one surprises here too. I didn't know Noah Kanan was a Chelsea fan. Did you see that?
I did see that. I'm not all
That
that familiar with stick season or whatever that is, but
six
yeah, he he
season,
he,
yeah,
he was a proper bloke on the broadcast, right? He
yeah.
he said he wanted to play a match on a Tuesday night at Wigan,
Wigan,
and I was like,
yeah.
this guy knows what he's talking about, so maybe we'll have him on the podcast here one of these days.
Yeah, man, you never know. You never know. He was very optimistic, which I appreciate being a Chelsea fan myself. He was optimistic about that score line, which didn't turn out our way.
Well, I don't know. I think it's time to turn the page on game week one. Let's go on to the top scorers, I guess. So I'll go through the goalkeepers. And so I think there was 6 clean sheets on the week. Nick Pope, who I started this week, led all goalies with 9 points. And then Ederson and Raya came in with 8 points each um, in their matches this past week. So I refer to them as the usual suspects, right? Those are the three most expensive keepers. I think Nick Pope might be half a million pounds less, but they're all those 5.5 million pound keepers, and
Yeah.
they get points, and you know, I I'm liking Nick Pope to have a good bounce back year after the injury last year, so I'm gonna keep riding with him for a while.
All right, let's get into the defenders here. Let's see. Definitely some familiar faces. Definitely some impressive debuts as well here mixed in with those defenders. We got Pedro Porro pulling in for Tottenham with 9 points. I had him on my team, so that was a lucky one there. But next we got up Trent Alexander-Arnold for Liverpool. Again, another familiar face there, 8 points. And then we got Mizraoui pulling in for Man United, making his debut with 8 points. And definitely newcomer of the week there. We definitely have him rounding that out in terms of the defenders that are getting in and making an impact. And not only that, but he just transferred over from Bayern. So huge pickup there. Joel Veltman is the fourth player with 8 points from Brighton and Hove Albion. And he played rather well. They had that 3-0 shutout against Everton, and it should have been four to be fair. But yeah, they did hold that shutout and got him a lot of points. So yeah, good on them.
Yeah, I really thought Maserati was a good player. Obviously coming from Bayern, you should have figured he'd be a good player, but he came in like midweek, and so he only had
Yeah, how impressive is that?
3 days or so with the squad, and yeah, he looks to be a real player, and keep an eye on him to see if he can nail down a spot there on the back line. But yeah, I think he should definitely be on all managers' radars at this point. We can move on to the midfielders. Like I mentioned before, Mo is still king. He led all the midfielders with 14 points. I think he had a goal, an assist, clean sheet. Then Saka at Arsenal had 12. Joel Linton from Newcastle had 11, and Kovacic from Man City had 11 points as well. Joel Linton is just such a beast. Like he's not, I
He's a
don't know,
force.
he's not like the most skill, but he's just like a battering ram out there where he's just, I don't know, they can't drop him. He's like pretty much the heart and soul of that Newcastle team, and the fans all love him, and
Yeah,
yeah, he just figures out a way to contribute. I don't see myself as putting him on my squad anytime soon. Same with Kovacic there, just
yeah.
because with Man City, you just never know who's going to play week to
That's the
week.
problem.
You
Yeah.
just need to get a nailed down starter in all your spots here. But yeah, that's the midfielders for this week or for last week.
All right, moving on to forwards. No Holland in these top prospects here for forwards this week and gaining those points. We have Kai Havertz for Arsenal with 12 points. And he also, I mean, he did great along with Saka, got an assist there as well as a goal. Danny Welbeck for Brighton and Hove Albion. He also got a goal and assist in his game. And yeah, great call by that new young manager there, bringing him in, or not bringing him in, but like starting him up front there. So I mean, definitely paid off. And then we also have Wisa from Brentford with 11 points, who was very impressive over the weekend. He was great. He just like the way he almost like was playing like a false nine, like he was dropping back real deep into the midfield, and that's where they were able to really create a lot of their chances. And he's so fast and he's just powerful. I mean, he was just great. I mean, him and Brian and Bomo. So definitely props to Wisa and all the other forwards that are going into game week one. Definitely. All right. Should we get into low cost player of the week?
Yeah, sure. I went with Danny Welbeck, who we
Mhm.
just mentioned in the forwards there with the goal and an assist and the thrashing of Everton. So,
Mhm.
yeah, what is he? 5.5 million pounds, I believe.
Welbeck.
Welbeck. Yeah, I think he's something around that, and
Yep, 5.5.
5.5. So yeah, that's definition of low cost player, right? 5.5 forward gets you a goal and an assist. So that's the type of player that can propel you up the table in your league.
Yeah. It's what you call a great differential right there. Yeah, definitely. So my low cost player of the week was a player we just talked about, Mateo Kovacic. coming in, and I believe he's the same price if I'm not mistaken. Kovacic 5.5. But yeah, he did really great for Man City getting that goal, and what a goal too. And to be fair enough, Sanchez did get a hand on that, so he should have been a little bit more reactive, but not taking away from the former Chelsea man and getting that goal and bringing them, they already had the lead there, but he definitely sealed that for them. So going with Kovacic for my low cost player of the week.
Just to add to that or to ask about that. So do you think Sanchez gets dropped after that performance, or is he going to be the number one at Chelsea?
I don't think he'll get dropped after that per se. If he has another few bad games, then maybe I think that there might be some consideration, especially with the backup that they have. I know that Petrovic is injured right now, but we just brought in Jorgensen from Villarreal, so yeah, I think he definitely has some competition, but not as much as if Petrovic were also like were healthy, just because he is established and they were going back and forth a bit last year. So in my opinion, I don't think he's going to drop after that game. No, especially versus Man City. You know what I mean? Like you go into those expectations with, trying to do is, trying to get that win. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's Man City. It is game week 1. There's a lot to, come with that. So
all right, well, let's get to our disappointing players of the week. I'm going to go with Phil Foden. Started off on the bench. I don't know what Pep's doing. He was literally the player of the year, players player of the year last year.
yeah.
I don't know what's going on, but apparently he's rotating his players already. So yeah, I'm just a little disappointed that Phil Foden's still on the beach. So
Yeah.
hopefully he can get off holiday and play game week 2 here, because I'm gonna stick with him, keep him in my lineup. I'm not gonna panic yet. Gotta figure he can't start on the bench for 2 games in a row, can he? But we'll see.
All right. So my disappointing player of the week is definitely going to be Fabian Schär. Fabian Schär is my man. He did not have a great game. He was out within like 25 minutes or something like that. And yeah, he definitely did not stick to the Fabian strategy, as it will. Pulling out the undergrad in history here. Do you know what the Fabian strategy is? No, the Fabian strategy is a military tactic based off of a Roman general that instead of attacking your opponent's head on and being aggressive, you kind of just hold off and work for attrition and try to wear them down, which defenders are supposed to do. So Fabian did not get that one. Fabian Shard, as I called him, because he was a fraction of what he should have been. And also with Fabian Shard's red card, so there are different rules that go along with the red cards in terms of suspensions. For Fabian Schar's red card, he is actually going to be suspended for 3 games going forward. So something to consider if you do have Fabian Schär on your team. He is going to be out for the next 3 game weeks. So whether you want to hold on to him or whether you want to get rid of him, it will come down to basically what the rest of your team is doing. Do you have other players that can, hold up your defense for him? Other players that, can, get you points in the end as well, obviously, because that's the end goal. But if you are looking to hold on to those transfers, you are going to have to keep him on your bench. And just so you are aware, he will get suspended for 3 games. In a normal red card, for instance, Ashley Young got a red card for Everton this week. He's only going to be sitting out 1 game because it was a nonviolent action. But something to consider going forward with yellow cards and red cards, if you don't already know, is that if you do accumulate the 1 red card that's nonviolent, you will just be sitting out for a game of league play. And then if you are going to be, if you do get a second red card in the season, later on in this season, just be aware that the second red card for nonviolent action, that is, will have the player sitting out for 2 games instead of just 1. So just something to consider with some of those players. While we're on the subject, just going forward with yellow cards, if you get 5 yellow cards before game week 19, your player will have to sit out a game. And if you don't get 5 yellow cards for your players up to game week 19, then you're pretty much in the clear for the rest of the season, unless you get a cumulative total of 10 yellow cards for that player. Then that player will have to sit out, I believe it's 2 games, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so something to consider. So game week 19, for example, if you're going into game week 19, you have 4 yellow cards, and then you just for some reason get to, you get lucky and your player doesn't get that fifth. Okay, it's not going to roll over into a game league ban until they reach another 10 if it's after game week 19. Okay.
Yeah, so another thing to also consider is that Carabao Cup games do factor in. So one of Char's games will be in the Carabao Cup, which
Mm,
obviously doesn't affect fantasy points or anything like that. So it will only be 2 Premier League games that he will miss because of that. And actually, I had to Google it to make sure that he actually
okay.
still was suspended, because that flop was pretty ridiculous from the headbutt. So Brereton Diaz just went down like he got shot
Yeah, it
after
was
he
bad.
just nudged him with his head a little bit. So I thought there was a good chance that maybe they appealed that red card and it got overturned, but nope. It looks like they did appeal and they stuck with it. You can't put your head on another player, even if the other player goes down like a little whatever. So
Yeah,
yeah, let's do player of the week. Do you want to get started with yours?
sure. Absolutely. So let's see here. My player of the week is going to be not really much of a question mark here. It's going to be Bukayo Saka. He had a goal and assist. He did get a yellow card in that game versus Wolverhampton, but he had a great game. He had a great game. Could have had a couple more actually, if I'm being honest. I mean, between him and Kai Havertz, they're both up there for me just in terms of their playing, their style. Both of them got a goal and assist, so they're working really well together in the first game of the season. Something definitely keep an eye on as you go forward in terms of Arsenal players and your prospects. But yeah, I think Bukayo Saka did a boom sakalaka and he fucking killed it. He killed it. He did really good.
I don't know how to follow that, but I'm sticking with Mo Salah, player of the week, most points. You know, can't nobody put up more points than Mo Salah, so he's the player of the week.
Yeah.
I guess you could argue that Mateo Kovacic or somebody who costs half as much money as Mo Salah, putting up just as many points, could have been the player of the week, but King Mo is still at the top of the mountain.
My only thing was it was kind of almost expected for me that they were going to just stomp on Ipswich. And to be fair, both him and Jota should have had both at least one more goal, at least one more goal. So, I mean, yeah, in any case, it doesn't take away from his performance. Yeah, he did amazing. Yeah, it's good. All right, let's go. Let's move into game of the week here. What's your game of the week, Reese?
I went with, I apologize in advance here, but I went with Man City spanking Chelsea 2-0, and it really
Uh,
wasn't even that close, right? I mentioned it before, like Man City are almost too good at this point. It's getting boring watching them. That Holland goal was pretty amazing. He's just, I don't know, he just powers through people, and somehow he has that composure to be able to cut that ball back into the back of the net. And so yeah, who else scored for Man City?
that was Kovacic.
Kovacic. Yeah, that's right. That rocket. He
Yeah.
only scores bangers, right? And yeah, I don't
They're
know. It
rare, but when he gets them, yeah.
yeah, at least he didn't celebrate, right? Did that feel good for you that he didn't
Yeah.
celebrate the goal?
A little bit. A
A little
little.
a little silver lining there,
A
right?
little still.
So, but yeah, that was my game of the week. I thought it was entertaining. Two top teams, if you consider Chelsea a top team. But yeah, I'd expect Chelsea to continue to improve.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. That was right up there for me as well. I mean, again, not being biased for Chelsea, but I mean Chelsea Man City opening weekend. Yeah, what's there to complain about? My game of the week would be the other of the London Derby, Crystal Palace versus Brentford. I thought just I mean, I knew Brentford was going to play well. It wasn't that necessarily, but I didn't realize how well they were going to be playing. Um, but we did see last year, with the Wisa and Buomo connection there, that they were able to do without Tony in his little band that not little band, big band that he had there. But yeah, I just thought great performances by both of them playing against Crystal Palace, who I thought actually would be the more dominant team, but it didn't end up being like that, even though there were periods in the game where it was going back and forth. I mean, Eze hit the post off that free kick, which was quite spectacular. And yeah, there's a lot of debate in terms of that being brought back and why that free kick was, overturned. But I mean, that was an incredible goal. Arguably could have been one of the goals of the season, I mean, had it stand, so definitely a great game for me, and definitely exciting watching both of those teams going forward here.
All right, let's get into transfers. So since we last talked, there's been a few transfers that have gone through that, and I just want singled out a handful of them to just go over and just talk about to see if, do you anticipate adding them to your squad at some point in the season?
Okay.
So I'll go ahead and start with Jorginho Ruder, midfielder that Brighton Hove and Albion just got from Leeds.
Mhm.
They triggered his 40 million pound release clause. It's a club record deal. Um, he I remember he got transferred over to Leeds in the January window when Jesse Marsh was managing them, and
Mm.
he wasn't that impressive in the Premier League. He put up, I believe, double-digit assists in the championship last season. He's still really young. I think something like 22, 23 years old.
Yeah,
So I don't
I think
see
he's younger
him.
than that. I want to say 21, 22.
Is
Yeah.
is he still okay?
Yeah.
I know he was really young when he came to Leeds about a year and a half ago. So yeah, that would make sense that he's still pretty young. But yeah, it looks like he's going to start at 5.5 million pounds in fantasy. So he's not a huge investment, but yeah, I would say that I don't see him factoring on my roster this season unless he really starts putting up some points.
Yeah, I agree completely with you, especially going over to Brighton. I mean, I don't know about I already have Jow on my team. And I mean, if I was gonna bring in a midfielder, it would definitely be Matoma. I mean, I love that guy. He's just so solid. He's so fast, he's so technically skilled. I mean, so for me to bring in, Reuter it would take, not a lot. I'm not saying I wouldn't, but if I did bring him in, it would have to be after some pretty decent performances. We got to see what he can offer to the team, where he fits in the squad. So there's a lot to be determined with that, but yeah, definitely a good young signing. That's for sure.
Did you see Matoma's goal this weekend?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. He's got so much skill and
Yeah.
he's so fast and he made it look easy, right? We all like
Mhm.
that ball was just blasted at him and he, took the calmest touch in the back of the net. And
The way
so
he was able to adjust like that. Yeah. It was great on that back post.
so
Incredible.
yeah, like you said, Matoma over Reuter for sure.
Absolutely.
But right now I don't have either of them in my squad.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I only have Zhao, like I said, but if I'm going to be adding on more Brighton players, I'd definitely be going for Matoma myself. All right, next we got Zhao Felix coming back to Chelsea. There's a lot of question marks there with all these summer sightings and everybody we got on the first team here. Total of 44 Chelsea in the first team. Let's see here. We have 191 years of contracted players for Chelsea right now. So in terms of fitting on the team, I actually think this is a great signing. I think this is an incredible signing. I know what he can do for Chelsea. And I'll be perfectly honest with you. And if some people don't like this opinion, that's fine. But I'm not a fan of Nick Jackson. Nick Jackson just doesn't have a great first touch. His spatial awareness on the field, his composure in the box. It just, he does have his attributes. I'm not trying to take everything away from him in terms of, and I mentioned Nick Jackson just because he started the first game. So, there's a lot of contention for that role there. A lot of people were talking about Nkunku in like the preseason and that, but obviously we got him starting on the outside with Cole Palmer. For whatever reason, Maresca feels they're better out there, better attributed out there. I still think they'll continue to start that way, at least for the next game, in terms of those right and left wings there, Palmer and Nkunku. I actually, to be fair, I would like to see Palmer in the middle. But in any case, talking about João Felix here, he's just one of those natural strikers, the natural number nines that you can depend on. He's technically, his technical abilities are just incredible. He's super composed. And he's used to the limelight, and he knows how to, put the ball in the back of the net. And I just feel like he'd be a much better striker over, especially, like I said, again, Nick Jackson, just because he started the first game. And to be fair, I mean, I'm looking at some other of the forwards, even Pedro Neto that we signed, that could play up there. I still would choose João Felix. Another reason why I'm wearing my João Felix Portuguese jersey here. But yeah, I'm all on board with that. I think he's gonna really benefit Chelsea if he can get that number one spot up top.
So you think he's going to be part of Dan's clan moving forward here?
I think so. I
You think so?
think so. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I can't see him making my squad this year. I don't, I don't think his transfer is official yet, so I'm not really sure how much he's going to cost.
Hmm.
I would imagine he'd be around 8.
Probably somewhere in there. Yeah, I'd
Around
say.
that.
Yeah.
We'll see closer to game week 2 here if the transfer goes through and they give him a fantasy value.
Yeah.
But yeah, the 191 years of contracted players for Chelsea, that's insane. So that's out of all 44 of their first team players, they have contracts that total 191 years total.
That's
That's
like
just
4 life
absolutely
sentences.
that's absolutely insane. And
Yeah.
Todd Bowley is a complete madman who I would be losing faith in him if I was a Chelsea fan, that's for sure. But
I'm getting there. That's for sure. There's a lot of untested ground with what they're doing right now, and there's no past history to see that what they're doing will
Mhm.
work. So it's either gonna work or it's not. And I don't know. I'm leaning with you. I don't know if it's gonna work.
All right. Well, that's enough Chelsea talk for now. So
Yep.
let's move on to Kelvin Phillips, midfielder for Ipswich Town now. So he just moved from, somebody finally freed Kelvin Phillips. He was locked up in Man City for a couple seasons. He had a disappointing loan at West Ham last year. And yeah, so hopefully he can get back to his Leeds form where he was getting call ups to the national team and all that. But
Mhm.
um, he's another one of those kind of big names that I just don't see having much value in fantasy. You hear Calvin Phillips, oh, the English international midfielder, but he's never been one to get in on the goals. And yeah, I just don't see him making my squad even at £5 million to start off.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think he's going to be a big asset for the Ipswich Town team, but I mean, just anchoring that defensive mid position or even in the back, wherever they put him. But yeah, in terms of fantasy value, I agree with you. Am I going to be like rushing to put him on my squad here? No, not anytime soon, if at all, So I mean, there's a lot of question marks with him, and yeah, nothing too enticing, but definitely I think a good asset for Ipswich.
Yeah, for sure. More for Ipswich than fantasy.
Yeah,
A big name. It'll be interesting to see if he can bounce back. He he took a lot of abuse in the tabloids for being overweight and all that. But I could imagine going from Leeds to or being the star at Leeds to riding the bench at Man City was tough on him. And
yeah.
just hoping on a personal level that he bounces back this year.
Yeah, I think so too. And maybe it might just be the thing that he needs, get into, some regular playing time. And, and that annoys me that tabloids are going after him from being fat. What do you expect when you're sitting on the bench? You know what I mean? What are you going to do? So,
Right.
right. So, all right, moving on. We have Evan Nielsen from moving to Bournemouth from Porto. Huge signing with a record transfer of 37 million euros, with a 10 million euro of add-ons and 10% sell-on clause for Porto. None of that's, you can push all that to the wayside, not important. But what is important is what this guy can do on the field, and he definitely can put the ball away. And he has the experience as well for playing in the Portuguese league. I mean, he played in the Champions League last year. He had like 13 goals, I believe it was 13 goals and 3 assists in for Porto in the league play, and he had another like 4 goals in the Champions League playing for Porto. So yeah, I think he's gonna be a great asset in terms of replacing Solanke, who just went to Tottenham. He is starting at £6 million, which is reasonable, and depending on where the performance and what he can do on the squad there. But I think he's gonna do good things up front for them. I mean, they did have was it Semenyo that was started up front for them last game, and yeah, which is normally he plays either more on the wing as well, particularly the right wing. But yeah, I think that he should do some good things in replacement for Dominic Solanke. Can he adjust to the Premier League with the competition and everything like that going forward? Yeah, we'll see. I mean, Semenyo did do well up front. He did score a goal last week. So, you have that contention going forward. But again, they wouldn't have signed him if they weren't planning on playing him, that type of caliber player. So I expect he will start, and maybe not the next game. I don't know. It depends in terms of like the transfer and where he's at with that. But yeah, he definitely should be starting sooner than later.
Yeah, it's just with these new players, until I see them consistently in the starting lineup, you can't really trust that they're going to get that playing time to put up the points. Into show prove it to me first, and then I'll get you in the squad. But yeah,
Yeah.
one thing with Semenyo is he is listed as a midfielder and at 5.5 million pounds. So those are always the uh, advantageous signings where you can get somebody playing out of position, because I believe it's defenders get 6 points for a goal, midfielders get 5 points for a goal, and forwards get 4 points for a goal. So just because Semenyo is listed as a midfielder, he'll get an additional point per goal than if he was listed as a forward. So
Right.
it's just something to consider
Very
as
good
you move
point.
forward.
Yeah, very good point. You can find those like cheeky little position players there that are classified elsewhere. Definitely take advantage of that for sure.
Yeah, most of the time it's a defender, right, who's getting pushed up on the wings. What's his
Right.
name? Nori from Wolves last season,
Yep.
and
At
player.
Nori. Yep. Shall we get into our game week 2 changes? Are you making any changes this week? Weez, what are you doing going forward here in this next game week?
I do not believe so. That's the plan going into the season. Plan out a few game weeks ahead and try to bank your transfers. And so I'm not going to make any moves unless something crazy happens over the next couple of days before game week 2. But I'm planning to pocket my transfer for the week and wait until game week 3 to potentially make a double move if I feel that my team needs a little freshening up at that point. But I feel like I planned well enough to pass on a move this week and punt it until week 3. How about you?
All right, nice one. Yeah, so I'm only making one change in particular. Taking out Jacob Murphy, who I had as a differential in game week 1, hoping that he would capitalize, but he got taken out pretty quick once Shar got that red card. The coach had to reposition his formation, his players there, so he unfortunately was a fallout from that. But in any case, they are playing Bournemouth this week, so they do have actually a pretty decent fixture. But I definitely preferred Nkunku to start this week over Wolverhampton. I know they are playing away, but Wolverhampton doesn't seem to be in that great of form right now. And I think that Nkunku is going to start in the next game. So I will be putting him in my midfield. The only other doubt I have, which is kind of that knock from Pedro Porro, he's at a 75% possibility of playing, but it is the beginning of the game week here. So, I mean, there's plenty of time for him to get in there and get back into training. But in any case, I'm not subbing out Pedro Porro, just Nkunku for Jacob Murphy this week. That's it.
Yeah, I have 3 Aston Villa players on my bench this week, uh, with the
Three.
Arsenal matchup.
Oh, okay.
I had Matson, who I didn't mention as a disappointing player, but it's another new face, right? Who it's sometimes it takes time to get into the starting 11, and should have thought
Yeah,
about it with Matty Cash and Lucas Digne uh, being there, kind of entrenched at the left back and right back positions that Matson
sure.
might not get into the lineup immediately. So he got in the second half just enough to get me 1 point.
Mhm.
But yeah, so I'm hoping not to make any moves this week.
Nice. All right, so we got our teams out of the way here. Who are you going to be captaining for game week 2?
It's got to be Mo Salah. I just don't see anybody else worth captaining this week. I'm sure there's somebody else, but with Mo Salah already on my roster, with his game week 1 performance,
Right.
having not a lot of game week over the summer with no big tournament for Egypt and playing at home against Brentford, I feel like Mo Salah is gonna have a big game um, at home at Anfield. So
Yeah,
yeah, I'm feeling Mo Salah again. I'm gonna keep riding him until he gets benched.
gotcha. Yeah, definitely a smart play there. I mean, you might as well go with what's working. And yeah, with that home game versus Brentford, yeah, that's not a bad pick. I mean, that's right there with me. I do have a couple other contentions. I haven't completely decided on my captain yet. Mo Salah is definitely the number one player that I'm considering right now. But in right behind them, Mo Salah. I am slightly considering Palmer, but more so than Palmer, I'm also considering Dominic Solanke playing Everton at home. I think that that is a great fixture. I mean, if I had Son Heung-min, I might captain him too, but I don't. If I had Howland, obviously playing Ipswich, that's a great matchup right there. You can't go wrong. He's definitely going to get some goals there. But yeah, outside of Mo Salah, I got Palmer possibly as a slight third contention, but Solanke followed up by Mo Salah with that Everton home fixture. Yeah.
Yeah, just looking at my roster here, it looks like basically everybody has a favorable matchup or a green matchup when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to the fixture rating. So yeah, I'm really banking on the teams that I think are going to be finished towards the bottom of the table. Um, I think it's going to hold true to what the predictions are. So I got, Newcastle players playing against Bournemouth, Man City against Ipswich, Fulham against Leicester, uh, and then uh, Mo Salah against Brentford, and like you mentioned, Cole Palmer against Wolves,
Yeah.
and so all these should be opponents that are projected to finish towards the bottom of the table.
All right. Let's see here. Let's get into. All right, so let's go ahead and we'll get into our game week 2 players to target. Um, we do have some of the usual suspects, or at least I do, I should say. Holland, Ipswich Town playing Ipswich Town at home. I believe the game's at home, right? Man
It is
City.
at home, yes.
Yep. I mean, I don't have Holland, so I'm a little jealous about this game and hoping that he doesn't outscore Mo Salah in his Ipswich Town game here. So we'll see how that goes. But I see him putting definitely a few goals in the back of the net, if not more. Let's see here. A couple other players to target that I got here would be Diogo Jota, who had a great game in game week 1 playing Brentford again alongside Mo Salah and the rest of that Liverpool squad that's looking really good. I definitely think he's going to start again, so shouldn't be much of an issue there. And then, as I mentioned already, we got Palmer and Solanke / Son. And I don't have Son, but if you do, Son might be definitely a player to target if you're looking for a midfielder that you need to replace for whatever reason that might be. Those are definitely great fixtures, and I would be looking to those players for targetism.
Yeah, I would agree with all those players. The only other one I would throw out there would be Isaac against Bournemouth. It is away, so that might not be the best move to make, but uh, Bournemouth isn't that great.
But still, quality. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
so I would just add that, and the only thing that I can, being someone who's not spending the 15 million pounds on Holland this year, or at least not yet.
Mhm.
I can only hope that Pep decides to rotate at game week 2 and play somebody else up top. So
Yeah.
hopefully he'll get the Phil Foden treatment in game week 2. But
Yeah.
yeah, the best bet there would be for Pep to do something weird and start Holland off on the bench, but he'd probably still get a hat trick coming in the 70th minute. So
Honestly, yeah,
uh,
there was one other player that I was thinking about to target this week as well that had a great first game week, but the fixture isn't the greatest. Would be Onana. He had, he came in, guns blazing in game week 1 with that header, that cross there. But they are playing Arsenal, so probably not the best fixture, but definitely a player to keep your eye on going forward for sure.
yeah, and I did mention him in one of the other podcasts and said that he's not a goal scorer, so he proved me wrong already. So what do I know?
Hey, we're all learning together.
All right. Well, I think we're good. Let's go ahead and wrap this up. And thank you guys for tuning in to
FPL across the pond.
Want some beer?